Hi there guys, and welcome back to my channel. Draven here. Now I hope you enjoyed the stories I told. It was probably over a week ago. I had a bit of a week off, which is nice. But I'm back. Now, wonderfully, some friends of mine who are wonderful writers have reached out to me and given me some of their short stories and allowed me to tell my short stories on my channel here. So I'm now going to be putting a call out for any writers with short stories that would love them to be heard. Please do get in contact with me. You can hit me up at greg@gregdraven.com. That's my email address. Obviously, you all know that, because I'd love to read your story. And today's story is by a fantastic friend of mine by the name of Max Bantleman. I've known Max for a very, very long time, over half of my life, and he sent me a wonderful story. I read the story last night to prime myself, and I really, really like it, obviously, because he's a wonderful writer. So I'm going to be starting with his story today. Got a few more lined up. Might do 1 or 2 stories a week. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, let's start off. This is called Mistaken Identity by Max Bantleman. Hope you enjoy. Gilbert Bartolozzi was a shoe man. Shoes were his thing. The safest way he could connect to a person was through their shoes. He discovered in his late teens that this included any sexual attraction to women he may feel, although sexual attraction wasn't the main reason that he liked shoes. Gilbert had an uncanny ability to know people just by looking at their face. He could see their character, their motivations, loves, hate, fears and dreams just by studying their face. If he looked them in the eye, he took all of this in through a flash of understanding that stunned him to immobility. Gilbert didn't have the same wants, needs, desires and ambitions as those around him. It saddened him greatly that what others saw as important was seldom what they really wanted or needed. People lied to themselves, and this is what Gilbert really didn't like. Discovering that looking people in the eye brought on a massive revelation made Gilbert avert his eyes. He looked down and discovered shoes. Shoes were a gentler introduction to who people were. They still allowed him to know people, but made him work for it. A detective story on their feet. You could deduce who they were, who they wanted to be, but sometimes you were surprised. Gilbert liked surprises. School was difficult. His gift meant he knew people in a way that he really wasn't ready for. These things he knew he couldn't process, he was still figuring out what it all meant. Puberty awoke a realization that women were desirable in ways that aroused many new feelings and a new way to look at shoes. People didn't like Gilbert. He made them feel uncomfortable. His seeming inability to hold eye contact was generally seen as a sign that something was deeply wrong. As soon as he left school, he left home. His parents were okay, but they were no different to anyone else, and their constant presence became harder and harder for each of them to bear. For Gilbert, it was an ever-present reminder that people were just living a lie. For his parents, it was deeply painful. They knew they could never understand their son. He just wasn't like them and never could be. Working with people was out of the question, so Gilbert learned to work with machines. Machines didn't lie. Eventually, Gilbert was drawn to working with computers. There were many companies that couldn't care less if their computer geeks had no people skills, as long as they could fix things. Gilbert ended up working for a well-known credit control company in Canary Wharf as a data analyst and help desk supporter. He was just a number on the payroll. A faceless contact behind a screen and a keyboard. It was the perfect job. Sitting on a bench outside the glass and steel monolith where the company was based, Gilbert ate his lunch, keeping his eyes down and watching shoes. Today was a good day. It was Friday. Everyone had a spring in their step on Friday. The sun was out, lifting people's moods even further. Munching on a cheese and tomato sandwich, lightly buttered with a pinch of salt and pepper, he was at peace with the world. A stream of shoes passed by, mostly sensible work shoes with a smattering of more daring attire such as Chelsea boots or a slightly higher heel than was practical for an office. A well-worn pair of black Lokes drifted past. casually strolling, no urgency, probably with one hand in their pocket and another hand holding some food or a cup of iced coffee. And why not? Even the ridiculous iced coffee, which really wasn't a drink at all, just a display of misunderstanding of what a drink should be, could be forgiven today. Dark blue sensible office heels met with some comfortable loafers, a brief contact, maybe a kiss. Then they strolled off in step, heading towards the insanely overpriced pasta place across the plaza. Gilbert knew these shoes were a couple, or if they weren't officially a couple, they were during that workday. Work boots, scuffed and stained with cement dust, leaving a trail as they passed. There were always workmen on Canary Wharf. A gaggle of expensive walking boots scuttled by, accompanied by a sing-song language Gilbert didn't know, tourists heading for the underground. Converse All-Stars girl approached the bench, hesitating before she sat. Gilbert knew she worked somewhere in the same building as him, but hadn't a chance to find out more than that. Not one of the big offices, not with Converse All-Stars. Perhaps she was in IT. She usually sat with her legs crossed, quietly eating her lunch. Most of the time she had her earphones in, and Gilbert could hear the tinny clipping of some music he couldn't place. She had once spoken to him a few weeks ago, something about minding if she sat there. Gilbert mumbled something back, all very awkward and unnecessary. Of course he didn't mind. It wasn't for him to mind or otherwise. She was just being polite. He knew that, but he couldn't muster anything better than a mumble. Perhaps he should speak to her. Gilbert's train of thought was derailed by a ludicrously high pair of heels, shiny patent red over black seamed stockings, standing right in front of him, facing him. Gilbert stopped mid-munch of the sandwich and waited. He didn't know what for, but he felt as if something was going to happen. The shoes were hard to ignore, and his mind thought naughty thoughts. "Gilbert Bartolozzi?" the red shoes asked. Converse All-Star girl got up and scurried away. Gilbert wanted to join her. "Are you Gilbert Bartolozzi?" the red shoes asked again. Gilbert nodded. "May I sit, Gilbert?" Gilbert nodded. He didn't know what else to do. The red shoes sat and crossed their legs. Gilbert risked a glance upwards at the legs and then quickly looked away. "I've been searching for you, Gilbert." Gilbert thought this was incredibly unlikely. "Why?" he asked. "Because you have been chosen, Gilbert." Gilbert wished the red shoes would stop saying his name. It made him feel uncomfortable and somehow cornered. A hand strayed into view and rested itself on Gilbert's leg. Gilbert froze. "I think you know why I'm here," Red Shoes said. Gilbert was transfixed by the hand on his leg. "Your hand is on my leg," he said simply. The hand moved away. "I had to be sure, and now I am. You are one of the chosen, Gilbert. You must listen to what I have to tell you." The red shoes seemed gently insistent, not threatening or menacing, but forceful, as if they were stating the obvious and Gilbert would naturally do whatever they asked. Gilbert instinctively knew that he needed to take some control back and not let this situation slip away from him. But how? Black steampunk boots with buckles all along their side and metal plates on the heel and toe shuffled past. Even in this weather, Goths were unrepentant. "Gilbert, focus," Red Shoes insisted. Gilbert raised his eyes, sliding them up the legs of the red shoes, past the hem of the black pencil skirt, up over the crisp white cotton blouse and onto the face that awaited. He looked Red Shoes squarely in the eyes, and he felt nothing. He saw nothing, just liquid brown eyes. No flash of revelation, no shocking flood of details, no empathy or distress at lack of aspiration, no conflicting emotions, no inner turmoil or frustration at a self-imposed illusionary state. Just nothing. Gilbert's mouth opened. He was gawping. He briefly thought how foolish he must look, then the weight of what he wasn't seeing settled on him. Gilbert's voice dropped to an awed whisper. "Who are you?" "I am an emissary, Gilbert, sent to find you and bring you back to the world. You are needed." Gilbert nodded slowly as complete lack of understanding firmly took hold. "What?" You have a talent, Gilbert. A talent that is being wasted. You must not waste it, Gilbert. You must use it. People need you. What? Gilbert repeated. Red Shoes smiled. Her eyes smiled too. Gilbert felt a glorious warmth seep into him and fill him completely. Red Shoes softened her voice. It's all right, Gilbert. Everything will be all right. You are ready for this world, and this world needs you. Gilbert couldn't take his eyes from hers. He hadn't been able to look at another person for so long, he'd forgotten how wonderful eyes could be. Red Shoes' eyes sparkled. Gilbert had no idea what was happening, but knew he wanted it to never end. I must go now, Gilbert. You are ready. I don't think I am, Gilbert muttered. Red Shoes stood up. Gilbert let his gaze drift back to the glorious Red Shoes. Use your gift, Gilbert. Don't be afraid of it. Why do you think people lie to themselves? They are afraid, Gilbert. More afraid than you could ever be. Afraid? Afraid of what? Gilbert asked. Red Shoes laughed softly, a gentle sound that was uplifting rather than mocking. Of the same thing as you, Gilbert. But they do not have your gift. They cannot see the truth of things, not without a bit of help. Help some people, Gilbert. Red Shoes turned and left, walking away without any hurry into the bustle of the lunchtime crowds. Gilbert watched her leave, not wanting her to disappear from his view. Then she was gone. A girl in her early 30s was then standing next to Gilbert. Are you okay? She asked. Gilbert saw her face and looked her in the eyes. He saw her fear, all her doubt, all her confusion about what she thought she should be doing and saying. He saw all the things she told herself were not true and all the things that she thought were true but simply were not. She didn't like herself, but there was no reason not to. She had no reason to be anything but happy with herself. She was such a strong, gentle person with such a lively mind. The whole world should be a joy to her. Gilbert understood. He smiled warmly at Converse All-Stars girl. I'm fine, thank you. Can I join you for what's left of lunch? She asked. I'd like that, Gilbert said. My name is Amy, said Converse All-Stars girl. Hello, Amy. My name's Gilbert. I hope you don't mind me asking if you were all right. It's just, well, I saw you talking to that woman and you looked really uncomfortable. Gilbert smiled and looked at Amy, who smiled back. Oh, she was just explaining something to me that, well, I didn't think I was ready to hear. Oh, well, we all need a little help understanding things sometimes, I guess, Amy offered. I think you're right, Gilbert said. Amy got out her lunch, and Gilbert started on the second half of his sandwich. I like your shoes. They're very unusual, Amy said. Gilbert laughed. Thank you. I like yours. Tell me about them. And there you go. There was the story Mistaken Identity by the wonderful Max Bantleman. Now, Max is a fantastic writer, clearly. Whether I'm a brilliant storyteller, I don't think so. But hopefully I did his story justice. Hope you enjoyed it. There are some links in the description below where you can check out some of Max's other books and go and check them out on Amazon. They're not going to be affiliate links. I'm not making any money from those affiliate links. Please go and check out his socials. Again, they'll be in the description down below. Maybe go and buy one or two of his books available from Amazon. Hope you enjoyed that story. I'm hoping to be back with another story or two in the next week or so. I hope you are all staying safe. The sun is out. It's beautiful out there. It really, really is. And here we are on a lockdown. Oh. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the story. I'll see you all soon. Take care.